Okay.
Like this is just how one thing on your page looks.
Oh, okay.
It's not supposed to be anything like groundbreaking. It's like here's just one thing.
Yeah. Why can't you do all that? But I guess you could make that argument with app.js.
Yeah. Like, could I put all this code inside of
Is that English on yours too?
there? Could I put it all here?
Is it
Yeah.
English on yours too?
Yes, I could straight up.
But in theory,
Well, you're trying to get us to think differently.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
separating
I don't have to
components
understand
is
that.
actually going to make it a lot faster, right?
Eager to see your open.
It'll make it more manageable and extendable
Mm.
and reusable.
Yeah, because this way we don't have to.
'Cause, like-
if we want 17 pies,
Right.
this is an easier way to handle 17 pies.
And also, not only are we going to display pies, what if we also display cakes that look exactly the same, right? Or cookies that look exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can reuse our look and feel of our app instead of having to redo the whole thing.
Okay.
Because we're going to rename this to bakery list item. We're going to reduce all of these down to one component.
Right.
And we're going to have another component. So we're going to have a baked goods component, and then we're going to have like a baked good items component. We're going to like really abstract this out hard in the next 20 minutes.
Okay.
It's got to be fun.
Because as I was doing it, I was just like, there's got to be a better way.
Yeah, right. It feels like we can abstract this.
Yeah,
better,
it feels
right?
bad to do it this way.
But you're learning how to link things up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The abstracting it further and further out scares me a
It does. It should. It should.
little.
Yeah.
It does.
It's not that scary. It's okay. Nothing to be afraid of. It won't bite. I swear.
You said that about JavaScript.
Yeah. And has it bit you yet?
Yes.
Well, you have a very unique relationship with JavaScript. So the first thing we have to do is we have to abstract all of our data into some unified place. I chose a JSON file. This is what I was working on. We got some JSON. We see we have foods. Foods is an object that has 3 properties: pies, cakes, and cookies as well going on there. Left off cannibals because we're going to do something else with cannibals just to demonstrate routing as well. But here's our data. Each item has some stuff with it. I've moved the images outside of our projects to a hosting service outside of our project. The reason being is that we don't know where this data is going to come from, so we can't link it to ourselves. We can't link it to files inside of us. We now abstracted all of our data, all of our content away from our site. Because in reality, this probably isn't going to be a JSON file, right? It's probably going to come to us from some API somewhere. So that API has to supply us where the pictures land. So I just threw these out into pictures on the internet. So they're just strings now. Got some properties. Nothing too crazy, right?
I always forget about booleans.
Yeah, right?
They're useful though.
They're extremely useful. Yeah, they're extremely. It always reminds me, like, booleans are really powerful. But then there's like one step further called fuzzy logic, where it's like almost true and almost false. Like mostly true and mostly false.
Like truthy and falsy.
Nope. Like it's like, is it warm in here? How do we know whether it's warm in here?
Oh,
I have nothing to
subjective.
do with that.
How
Yeah.
often do you come across that in programming?
What if it's like how warm it is in here, stuff like that?
No, like, yeah, well, like fuzzy logic.
That's AI. That's a part of AI. So, not
Yeah.
currently, not yet, but
Yeah.
give it 5 years. Anywho, we have our JSON here. So you notice, if we kind of unravel this a little bit, let's start off inside of our home JS. All right, we're repeating a lot of stuff here, right? That stuff looks like the keys inside of our object. Pies, cakes, and cookies. Let's just start off here, and let's start to refactor this just a wee bit. So I want to import my data. Import.
You're recording, right?
Yep. Import data from data/foods.json. And then down here, we can do data.foods.map object.keys. Food group return I'll go over this in a second. Just want to get this out so we can look at it. What? Why are you red?
Does return need it in parentheses?
No, it's
Oh.
not.
Forgot my squiggles. So now we can look at the JSON object that we have. We can import it and say, hey, for every key inside of my foods, which is going to be pie, cakes, and cookies, I want to create a link. How are we doing this?
Yes.
So you want your 3 like cookies, cakes, and
Yep.
pies into the one.
I said for each key, for each unique food group inside of our JSON file, just give me a link.
For each food group.
Yeah, like cake, pie, and
Food type.
Okay, for all. So
food type,
except for candles.
except
Is what variable is data? Where is that? Is that the page?
JSON.
The
Right here. Importing data as that file. I'm calling that JSON file data.
This food group, arbitrary.
Yep, totally. I can name this cat. I can name this desk. I can name this blah,
Is-
blah, 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 blah.
And the one inside of the squiggles and all that stuff is the same one.
Yep, these two have to match that one.
Right, that's what I thought.
See if this works. Because really, this should work. Food group. We have pies, cakes, cookies, and cannibals. We go to cakes. Cakes, they are a lie. Pies, we still go to pies. That all works, all fine and dandy. And cookies, nothing too much there. So now, let's go down to the next level on side. Let's go into pies. So we know that our pies list is just a list of data, right? But really, we're getting that data from a JSON file now. So I'm going to get rid of this. And I'm going to import the JSON file again. Import data from data/foods.json. And just so we do a one-to-one thing here, we're no longer doing pieslist.map, we're doing data.food.pies.
Where does food come from? Oh, food.
Foods.pies, which is an array of objects. So far, so good? Yeah, sure. I mean, they have an image, a title, how many we have left, if it contains nuts, and how many it feeds.
Pumpkin contains nuts.
Apparently. I wrote a script to randomly generate this data.
Oh.
So I'm going to be surprised too.
I think the feeds one was on purpose, that you weren't sharing.
Oh no, that was a random number between 1 and 6.
Did you purposely want it to be arrays inside of objects?
Yep.
Why is that?
So we know we're going to have multiple pies, right? Well, when we have multiple things that have all the same structure, that's going to be a list of objects.
So an array.
Yeah, an array.
Would it be terribly horrible if we do something around to kind of go through this abstraction very briefly?
How I got to here?
I guess just because now I feel like we've got pies, we've got pie list item, we've got our actual pages. Like, I mean, can we just I guess, I don't know, maybe look at pie, I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know where I'm getting lost here.
We're looking
anyways.
at pies. We're going to use this JSON structure to use as out of pies. Then we're going to make a generic one that can take any key and display it.
Right, so right now, our pie list item has what though in it? This whole list?
It has, yes, it has this list, which has 4.
Okay, and then each page has like one sentence on it, correct?
Yeah.
Alright. And pies is the page we're on. Okay, never mind. I'm okay. It's 2 pages.
Yep. Amanda?
On your pie list item JS, where you just did the map,
No, pie. Yep, pies, yep.
you said data.food.pies?
Yep.
On the JSON file, it's foods. Is that gonna make a difference?
That will make a big difference.
Okay.
That'll go from an error to working.
Cool.
Ooh, wait, okay, so what is on pie list item? Because this is the page I thought was pies.
No, I.
Pie list item
I'm sure
is just
that-
one thing.
You always answer your question at the end.
The image.
It's the image and the
I
title.
hope it's not that.
I get it, you're working through it.
Okay.
Maybe it's the name that's throwing me off on that.
Yeah, we're gonna also rename it something else. So
Yeah, if we could.
yeah.
That's confusing me.
Let's see if this works. If this works, it should be exactly what we had before, right?
Right.
We should still see 4 pies, 4 images. So we go to pies, stores. Yay! That's awesome, right? But we know what page we're on, right? Pies. Amanda?
No, I'm good. I felt like.
Okay. Yeah. So we're on the pies page, right? Why don't we use that to our advantage? Instead of having to hard code pies everywhere, let's just rely on the URL to tell us what we should load. Right?
No, none of that sentence made sense. Try again.
So we have pies, right? We know what page we're on, right?
Yeah.
We have pies.
Because we said eyes. I don't understand your foods at all.
We also have cookies, right? Then we want to display a list of cookies. We also have cake. We want to display a list of cakes. Right? So we know what page we're on based on the URL.
Yeah.
So let's fill out cakes next. The same way that we did pies right now. And then we'll see if there's any abstractions that we can make.
Okay.
So if I head on over to cakes, I can do the exact same thing we did on pies, right?
Right.
We can import our data. And then inside of our body, we can, hey, check out these. We can loop over now not pies, but cakes. And it'll still work. Right? So now if I go to compile, import
Yeah, you can pie stuff.
pie list item from components / pie list item.
There are cakes.
Yeah, so now we have cakes, and we also have pies.
Right.
So these 2 pages are doing pretty much the exact same thing, right? We have, hey, we're using a pie list item, which we can rename, because it's no longer a pie list item, it's just a bakery item. So let's rename this bakery item. Rename this everywhere. So now if we go to do cookies, the next page, we're gonna do the exact same thing, right? We're gonna import the JSON file. We're gonna have a UL that iterates over a part of the list that gives me a bakery item. But instead of pies or instead of cakes, we're gonna do cookies.
So you're gonna abstract, you're gonna say like this dot props dot URL or something and where it is so that you don't have to type in the exact,
Yep.
that's the abstraction.
Yep. So the abstraction's right here. Because this is the only thing that's really different between this page and that page, right? Yeah, there might be a different header, but we can put that in the JSON file, you know. But it's really, hey, here's the only real difference. So let's take that abstraction, let's do it together. All right? So let's come here and let's make a new page.
Also, you can't.
We'll call this a bakery list. .js, right? Because it doesn't matter what it is. It can be cakes, it could be cookies, it could be scones, it could be donuts. It doesn't matter. And let's bring over pies because that's really what we're using as our starting point, right? Bakery list, bakery list. Now, instead of looking for pies, we want to look at the URL to see what page we're on, and then load that list appropriately. So if we're on the cakes page, we want to load the cakes. If we're on the cookies page, we'll load the cookies. So we can say, hey, look at my props, look at where we matched, grab the parameters, and let's call it food.
Good.
Good food. Let's call it food. Let's call it
Tummy treats.
See,
tummy treats. Just so we know where it is.
Is gonna start a race condition?
Nope.
There's no API.
So where did that tummy treats come from? Where do we need to do? We need to do some parameters. I'm not ignoring you, Phil. I'll just come along for the ride right now. So we have tummy treats. We now have a URL parameter, right? Like this morning in our slideshow, we had a URL parameter of ID, right, for valence. We're going to have a URL parameter of tummy treats for our baker. So this goes into effect inside of our app.js. So now instead of saying pies, cakes, and cookies, we can actually say, you know what? Let's make this a parameter and let's match on tummy treats.
And then every time you say tummy treats,
The component has to change.
Yep, correct. So this will now be bakery list. So now I've just made my 3 pages. So Dante looks very confused or shocked.
3 pages, but there's more pages.
I've made many more pages than that.
Okay.
I've made
It's
now,
like delete and stuff.
I've made a blueprint for the page.
Right.
So Dante, let's start with you, and then
So
we'll
it's
work our way.
gonna dynamically create the URL now.
Yep. So just as we're talking about this morning, how like there's twitter.com/username. Dante, do you have a Twitter?
No,
Do you mind sharing?
Twitter.
Do you mind sharing it?
Sure.
Actually, just tell me what it is.
It's Dante's Inferno with a Z.
Yeah, so there's a Twitter profile at twitter.com/Dante's Inferno with a Z. And there's no page or component on Twitter's website that has Dante's Inferno hard-coded in there. It's all dynamic. They have one profile page that takes one URL parameter. So even though if we all have a Twitter account, we all go to our own profile page, it's still the same page, but the data is different, the content's different. The structure and how we get there is all the same, but what we see at the very end is different. It's going to load my feed versus your feed, but it's still going to have my picture on the left-hand side and my top banner and my bio on the left. Just the content's going to be different.
Not sure, but it almost sounds like as far as SEO optimization, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot.
A little bit, yeah.
So is there, I don't know, other tools that you would use
Yes.
to help with that?
Client-side rendering like this is usually not friendly for SEO.
Right.
So if you're building an SEO page that needs that, then yeah, you might want to switch to a different tool, like Gatsby or Next.js. But maybe your site doesn't need SEO. If I'm building a calculator tool, do I need SEO? If I'm building an internal management tool to manage my inventory in my warehouse, do I need SEO?
No, so like Next.js doesn't use SPA.
Yeah, Next.js is a server-side render.
Okay.
So this is all rendering and doing stuff on the client.
Okay.
Because remember, if we look at the page source for our React app, there's nothing there, right? There's like one div and like a link to a JavaScript file. But Next.js or Gatsby would give us the actual stuff that we care about. So yeah, all depends on what your use case is. A good example is that like our website, suncoast.io, that's built on Gatsby because we care about SEO. The internal tooling we have to manage y'all's grades and stuff, that's built with React Router actually, because we don't want that server. We don't care about that big server.
Right. Okay. And my other question is, you have a colon between tummy trees. Is that user choice or is that the actual syntax?
That's the syntax.
Okay.
So this is saying, you know what, this is going to match anything that's like a parameter. So anything that's slash anything that's not slash cannibals or slash pies slash pumpkins, it's going to match. And then give that to me as a parameter. So you know how this morning how we did a star and it worked? So why don't we just do that? Because that's not giving us the parameter.
And we can't pass that.
Right, we can't pass it anywhere. It's not naming it. You can almost think of these as almost like functions, like one level above functions that have inputs and outputs. The inputs are the parameters, whatever the URL looks like, and the output is what we see on the screen. So my input here is I want to pass it, what tummy treat am I on? And I actually want to see the bakery list with that tummy treat. Dante?
So how do you know where tummy treat is, where is it linking up to on the other page that you know it's going to be cakes or cookies? Like, how do you know that?
Right here. So this is where tummy treats comes into play. We've now created a page that has a URL that says, hey, you know what? This parameter is called tummy treats. Every time someone hits this page, every time that thing is matched, load this component, look in the JSON file, and find me the foods that match the tummy treats.
But then tummy treats back to it. Where's it coming from? Where's the URL?
Where's the URL?
We already define that.
So we're not defining it directly, but we are. We're actually defining it here in app.js, not in app.js, and home.js right here. So we're giving the user the option. Fail to compile. I got an extra dot there.
I says missing 1, 2 on line 7.
What? Baker is not defined. An app. Import bakery. Pages slash. It's trying to be smart, but it's not. Are you happy now? Head back to the home page. All right, so this is really where we're defining the URL sector, is right here. Is that we're giving the user the option to go to pies, cakes, or cookies. But really, as a user, I could be like, whatever I want. Cancel. I don't want to save. And it will still take me to that same page. That same page, which has an error right now, of course. But I think that's just something really easy to figure out. So let's figure this out. So we're saying, hey, go to this.props.match.params.tummytreats. I'm actually going to comment that out for right now. We're going to hit pies, because this one should work. And let's check out our React tools, what's going on. So We have a couple of extra layers here. I'm sure you've already noticed, right? Mhm. Yeah, right. All of these extra layers are React router doing its thing. Yeah, I know. It's awesome. I mean,
It's so much.
it is so much, but it's doing a lot for you.
That's what I'm saying. It's awesome.
Yeah, I don't have to build this. That's what I see. So yeah, our props now for our bakery list match params, tummy treats pies. If I change the URL to cookies, my props will now be cookies. So now my props are being populated, passed down from the parent. The parent in this case is effectively the URL. So whatever I type in there is going to wind up down inside my code. So now let's use this. So I think I see what my issue is already. Extra S, of course. Dot props dot.
Is that in brackets? The blue?
The what?
Why is this props match in brackets?
It's because it's accessing a property on the array,
Oh,
on the object. So it's this dot props dot match dot params dot tummy treat. Params, yep.
Would it error there if it was wrong with bakery item 2?
Yeah, but it's not even getting down to bakery item right now. There we go. Spelling errors. But it was
Wait,
cookies.
what was the fix? I missed it.
The fix was there was an S here. We just had to wait for it to recompile.
Oh,
Had to rebuild itself. I know. Sometimes it takes a second or two because I'm also recording, doing a couple other things, so it's a bit slower. Amanda, you have a question?
I did, but I see it now. It's the header. I would wondered why the top of the cookies page said check out these pies and not the Cookie Monster comment.
Yep.
It is because
Yep. That would be the next abstraction that we'll do together.
Can you go to the app for this?
Sure. I'll clean this up because I don't need any of that now. I don't need any of those, but here's our app.js.
Wait, so we can remove those from being imported
Yeah.
because
We can actually delete those, like cookies.js, cakes.js, pies.js.
because they're all in bakery list?
Yeah, because they're on bakery list. That one component now generates all those pages. So if I now bring on a muffin expert onto my team, in my bakery, I can now just say, you know what, I'm going to update my JSON file to include my list of muffins, and automatically it's going to appear.
Okay, I get this now.
Dante?
So when you make a link to it, you're kind of like injecting that link into the tummy treats, right? Because it doesn't exist until you like. So like on your home page, you're gonna have a link that you're gonna have a link there. And it's gonna basically type in the URL.
It's going to provide a link for the user to click.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it'll the URL there, and that'll generate the whole list.
so
But just to be clear, the fact that I have that in Home.js doesn't actually create the page. Like, I don't need this to create the pages. Like, if I take those out, come back here, I'm going to get an error here. Like, if I take those out, It'll still work. I can still manually go to cookies.
We have candles.
I can still manually go to those pages. But looping over the object like that gives the user some guidance to where to go. I just wanted to be clear on that.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
We were just waiting for an opportunity for us to see we have candles.
We have cannibals.
So, what was it? This treats or something? That's only defined twice.
Tummy treats. Yeah. Tummy treats is defined here,
Defined there.
and then we use it in bakery list.
So with this, you're actually like bypassing each page and going to the bakery list, and then you're passing it up, right?
No, I don't know. I mean, I'm bypassing each page, but I'm never going back to the other pages. So like this cakes page that we made right here, like we don't need it anymore.
Delete it.
We can delete everything we can.
That's because we put everything in the JSON.
Yep. Right. Still works. Yeah,
We still got pumpkin pie.
we do.
Awesome, it's my favorite.
I need to make that a recipe. Oh, it reminds me of The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yes.
I'm literally just thinking of
Right?
that song.
One of my favorite all-time movies.
So my kitty's named
What's your kitty's name?
Benji.
Oh, so creepy. He's such a good villain. I'm sorry.
Is.
Anyways, how are you feeling?
I'm still a little confused on how pictures and where they're coming from. It's throwing me off.
Oh, the pictures are coming from the internet.
It's coming from the internet.
Someplace else.
Oh, did you put them on top?
Yeah,
Oh,
someplace else. Someplace else.
Cloud in it.
Yeah, Cloudinary is an image hosting site.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that we might use when we get to the back end. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
no.
I want to do two more things. Let's do something easy and then something hard.
Do the hard thing first.
Let's do hard first.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay, because so the next thing that I want to do, oh, it's easy. I just want to do it real fast because it's going to bug me. So we have this pumpkin component for each individual item, right? But really, this pumpkin is that /pie/pumpkin, right? We're going to display a whole bunch of stuff. So we also want to do the same thing for this.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
Yeah, but we also want to make a page for s'mores, for the s'more pies. We also want to make a page for the unicorn cake. We also want to make a page for the deep fried Oreos that we have, which are delicious, by the way. But I don't want to go in and make 12 different components, 12 different pages, right? I want to try to parameterize my URL so I can use that to my advantage. So let's take the same idea we did for our bakery list, and let's do it again for, we'll call it a bakery display, an item display, what's another word for a pastry? Pastry page. All right, so I'm going to make a pastry page.
I want a dessert bucket.
I'm a little confused on your objective right now.
So the objective is that this morning we had something that lived here, right? At pie/pumpkin.
Mm-hmm.
I think we broke the man.
I thought Rito was here for a second.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I thought Rito barked.
I don't know. Because her friend was having her.
Oh, is
She's
it?
crying?
Is this crying?
Oh.
She just started distracting.
I know, we're like,
Yeah.
What broke you?
Mike's reaction to the pastry.
We,
Seriously.
yeah, because some of you are laughing, couldn't tell if you were crying.
No, sorry, laughing.
Okay.
I'm doing it.
So Phil, we had this page, right?
Right.
But we want a page for every single pastry that we have, every single dessert. So not only pumpkin pie, but s'mores pie, unicorn cake, the deep fried Oreos, the chocolate cookie, the
And you
Oreo
want a
raisin.
page specifically for each
Yep.
pastry.
Yep.
Okay.
So we can display a whole bunch of data.
Oh.
Just
So instead of doing this exponential amount of times every time we come up with a new recipe, we just make one component that takes some parameters of what we want to display. So we can use this idea to create a pastry page. So here on our app.js, it's going to live, let's give it a place to live. Path equals, and it's going to be a tummy treat / and we'll call it, I don't know.
Item. Yeah.
Treaty McTreat.
Face.
Base. Exact component equals, that's not spelled right. And this is going to be pastry. And of course, we're going to have to import pastry from pages / pastry.
In Michigan, have you ever had pasties before? They're like a
Nope.
pastry feel, yeah, like it's, how to describe it? It's like a calzone only.
Ooh.
More savory.
A savory calzone? Right? You mean the sweet
Calzones
calzone?
are
Yeah,
savory.
right. Yeah.
No, more
Is it
like
a sweet calzone? That'd be delicious.
Yeah, that sounds
A
good.
dessert, a dessert calzone with like layers of chocolate.
Yeah.
Whipped cream instead of cheese. Anyways, so we have our pastry component here. The first thing I want to do before I do any sort of like JSON-y kind of madness is I want to make sure that I'm on the right page whenever I come here. So I just want to print out what tummy treat I am and what treating a treat face I'm on. So if I go to pie / pumpkin, I should get I'm on the pie and pumpkin page. If I go to cake / unicorn, I should see cake and unicorn. That's really what I care about here, right? That's kind of our first real like, is everything working?
So you're almost, it's like you're hooking up the JSON file to the URL,
Yeah,
like completely.
pretty
Where
much.
it's like, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So like this is a very common strategy is if you have a whole bunch of sites, really big site, is that you're only writing kind of the skeleton of how a component looks, and then feeding it JSON. And then it's updating the JSON file instead of having to update the content.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
This set can be any size because it's going to map over it all.
Yeah. So I want to put out, we are on the this.props.match.params.tummy-treat. We are looking at the Treaty McTreat face. Okay, so now, if I kind of unexpected token ... Why are you giving me a ...
We're just trying to help you.
The very bottom of that page, you're just on there's some red.
Oh, because I am forgetting my closing. I always do that. The closing for the route.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. So now if I go to pies, I'm going to go to pies / pumpkin. Pumpkin. We're looking at pies and we're looking at pumpkin. Right now I can do whatever I want in the URL and it'll just respond to right? So now our pages are now dynamic based on what's in the URL.
Wow.
It's an infinite amount of web pages.
Pretty much, I've just created an infinitely big page, an infinitely big site.
But not really.
But not really, because I don't have that data.
But you could just add content and then it's there.
Yeah. So now I don't have to make content. I can say, hey, content team, give me a JSON file. Or better yet, here's a form on a website that puts into a database that we now call out in an API.
Ooh.
Then I don't have to manage any of this. So they can go and update their own stuff. Has anyone ever used WordPress before? Or heard of WordPress? Or some sort of CMS system?
It's old school, right?
Oh, no, it's very common still. But it's a CMS, a content management system. It's pretty much this on steroids.
That's what Willie's always talking about, right?
What?
Is it Willie always talking about WordPress?
Yes. No, SharePoint. SharePoint is another CMS.
Okay.
I hate WordPress.
So-
I see it with passion.
It's awful.
It's terribly awesome because everybody's just says, I just want a website that I can manage. Well, that's WordPress.
Yeah.
But now I want a website that I can manage and have admin and restricted sites. Oh, I want users on my site. Oh, I want e-commerce. Oh, I want scalability. Oh, I want marketing. Oh, I want SEO. Oh, I want this. No longer WordPress is fit your case. So now you need to go, well, wait a minute, we need to port, we need to make everything now. Because you need now a custom solution. Well, they don't want to invest in that money, so they just kind of
Okay,
cobble.
so now you just add all the
It's like
SEO ghosts and
yeah, it's like Frankenstein's monster pretty much.
it is. There's just a million apps that
Yeah.
are not compatible with each other and
You're talking about
smash
WordPress
them
in
together.
general?
WordPress sites. Not all WordPress sites are bad. I disclaimer. And it's a very useful tool, but it has a time and a place. That's it.
So
Which is
what
never.
are,
We use it. One of my old companies, it was a splash page, and the splash page led to an app that we built, and the app was what we really cared about. But the marketing team wanted more control over the splash page. So our splash page, our landing page, is a WordPress site, but the app behind it is actually a jQuery backend site.
That actually makes sense.
Yeah, powered by like 5 APIs, because that was so much bigger. But yeah, like so it's even though it's the same domain, same everything, it's two different tech stacks in the same website.
so WordPress builds websites,
WordPress helps people manage websites.
manage websites, okay. I was gonna say content management system sounds misleading.
Yeah.
So what are some other products in that same category?
SharePoint, Joomla, .NET Pearls, I know. There's a few other ones. I really don't know CMSs because I don't care to know CMSs. That's not something that I want to know about.
We don't need, okay, so that's not something required to understand the back end?
Nope.
Okay.
Not at all.
Not unless you want to create one custom.
Now, do like back-end frameworks like Node have CMS?
Yeah, CMSs are written in a language. So like WordPress is written in a back-end language called PHP.
Mm.
PHP is a language that's very popular because of WordPress. I have lots of feels about PHP. Lots of feels. I won't go into them right now. Maybe during a social, but not right now.
But PHP is only used for managing your content, or it's
Yes.
it's full
Yes,
stack?
it's like tools.
Okay.
Yeah, it's back-end stuff.
Okay.
Anyways, we have a dynamic website now, right? Where our website doesn't care about the content. But now we have URLs. So now we need to say, hey, on my pastry page, I need to import the data, look at what food I'm on, look at what tummy treat I'm on, and pull out what treat face I'm on. Such a crazy name. I'm going to probably end up changing that in the next 10 minutes.
No.
I don't.
It's too much.
So import data from /data /foods.json. Is it foods or food?
JSON file is food.
Foods.
Foods.
Yep. It kind of makes sense. And now here I want to go just some quick styling here. H2 this pi H3. Let's check out what we have in our data. We have image, title, number left, contains nested feeds. So let me sling some HTML here real fast. image source equals nothing for right now. H3 serves 4. H3 contains nuts. Notice how I'm just making static data first before I go in and make a dynamic. Feeds 2, all right. And now my data, I can actually go, hey, const pastry equals data.foods. Grab me this dot props dot match dot params dot tummy treat, and then take find where treat dot title equals this dot props dot match dot params dot. Yep. Treat make treat face.
I'm okay.
What's the 0 at the end of it?
Because filter returns an array.
That's right.
We want the first one.
Yep.
So this is going to be a pastry dot title. So just to see if this works, let's kind of deconstruct what I did there, because there's a lot going on.
Wait, we want the. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so we're saying, hey, check out data. Inside of data, there's an object called foods, right? Foods is an object that has a whole bunch of keys. Those keys are cake, cookies, pies. That's the first part of the URL, right? So give me the first part of the URL and grab me all the cakes. Or whatever we're on. Then out of all the cakes, find me the cake whose title matches the second part of the URL, Treaty McTreatface. So if I'm on the unicorn cake, this will give me the unicorn cake. But filter gives us an array. So we need to grab the first one.
Which wouldn't it be the only one since it's matching?
Probably, but I want pastry over there to be an object, not an array.
Gotcha.
So I need to even though it is going to be an array 1, I want to convert it to an object.
So you want to grab the first one over and over again? Or
Just once.
Just once. Okay.
And actually, this would probably be a cool thing to put in like component did mount and throw it in state, just to be cool. We could, but that's fine. So let's see if this works. And what we're looking is on line 19, do we get the title of whatever we're on? Of course not, because we're going to have a error, because nothing's ever easy in React. Except everything and nothing. And stuff is not something I care about. So now if I go to pies, and I go to pumpkin,
Nice.
if I change it to a lowercase p, I get an error. So this is very case sensitive. Very case sensitive.
As opposed to not.
Yeah. And of course, we know how to make not case sensitive, do a bunch of 2 lower cases inside of our filter and check that out.
Okay, so if in the cookies you had 2 things that started with Oreo, and you did localhost 3000 / cookie / Oreo, then what happens?
2 things containing or 2 things equal to Oreo.
2 things that's,
So if we have deep fried Oreos
Okay.
and Oreo sandwiches,
yeah,
right? It's going to grab me the first one.
so the first one in the JSON file.
But really, it's only if we just pass an Oreo, it's going to match on neither.
Right.
Right.
Because neither are exactly
Right.
Exact.
Right.
So it doesn't matter.
So what we can do, if we come down here to our bakery item, down here, we can make this a link. Import link from React Router DOM. We can wrap this whole thing into a link. And where do we want to go? We want to go to slash somewhere slash this dot props dot title. And we can rename this food group this dot props dot food group. And then up in bakery list, not only do we pass title and imagery, but we also pass food group equals food. So now each pastry item is now a link to pies, to whatever it is. So if I'm on the pies page, it'll be a link to pies/pumpkin, pies/s'mores. Here's pies/apple, and it works. I haven't made this page yet, it's making it for me. It's a dynamic page now. So let's go in and populate everything else. So image source pastry.image URL serves pastry. And then for our contains nuts, we can actually do a ternary here. We can go, hey, if pastry dot contains nuts, then say contains nuts, peanut free.
You don't need
You need this.
props dot, it's not props pastry dot.
Nope, because that pastry is a local variable inside of render. Because remember, render is just a method. Even though it returns to us JSX, we still have to do a little bit of logic there. So instead of me having to do this whole thing every single time I need to access it, I'm just accessing it once and storing it in a variable. So I can just do pastry.image, pastry.title, and so forth.
So is it going to get the ones that are peanut free?
Yeah, so if it contains nuts, if this is true, it will say that it contains nuts. If it's false, it'll say that it's peanut free. So let's see if this works, right? See what syntax error I messed up?
I'm sorry, we don't need this there because.
It's included in the
Because
variable.
pastry,
it's
yeah,
a variable.
because pastry isn't part of pastry. It's not part of the class pastry. It's just a local variable. That's it.
It's not, okay, it's not part of the class, that's
Right.
the reason why.
Yep. So I have apple. If I go to sugar cream, also contains nuts. If I go back to my home page, then I go down to cookies. Deep fried Oreos, chocolate chip cookies. That's not the right picture. What doesn't contain nuts? Looks like I'm very nutty. That's not right. S'mores, true. No, they all contain nuts. I'm going to change this. In there twice. No. I'm going to get rid of you. I'm going to change this to false. Just to prove now I can change the data in my JSON, and now if I head up here, so this should be false. Why are you not false? Serves 2, contains nuts. So if everything else is working, I'm curious why that line's not. So I'm going to see at the time of render what exactly is the value of pastry. What am I rendering out? Oh, there we go. Just had to wait for it to update. Peanut free. How are we feeling so far?
Practice.
Yes, practice. Lots and lots of practice. Let me come over here to my bakery list. Let's get rid of that other error. Key equals the index. There we go. Yeah, I love. It's one of my weaknesses.
Eating just raw cookie dough? Oh, have you seen in like the desserts they've got like little jars of just like this is batter or something?
That just sounds amazing.
At
It's
JJ's,
awesome.
they have cookie dough in jars.
Where?
JJ's.
So I like taking my cookie dough and like miking it for like 30 seconds, just to give it a little bit of like a fluffiness to it. Oh, it's so good. Like it like melting. It melts the chocolate chips just a little bit.
The brownie batter hummus yet?
No, that
What?
sounds disgusting.
It's amazing.
And they have snickerdoodles.
so
And they have red velvet.
brownie batter hummus. Graham crackers.
How are we feeling?
Thing.
I can talk about desserts all day, but how are we feeling?
Yes.
We've now parameterized our site. We've now reduced the code a lot, right? Like I can get rid of now this pumpkin. Delete. Terrible. And really, we end up with like what, 4 components? We have our app.js, which is like our index. We have our home, which is our home page. We have our bakery list, which defines our list for a bakery, for like muffins, cookies, cakes, cookies. And we also define what one pastry looks like. Then we pass it data so it can display data that we need.
Do you have any recommendations on how you keep track of this as you're, I know like when you wireframe and set everything out, but I mean, this is like another level.
Yeah.
I feel like the more you do it, the better you get at it.
Yeah, it's a lot of practice, and for me, it's 2 things. Start with static content to know what the hell's going on inside your webpage. I know you say that here. You see me do it almost every day. It's like I'm gonna create some HTML real fast just so I see what's going on. Not only is that for you to see what's going on, but that's for me to not get lost. I also try. I know this is the hard part. I try to only think of one problem at a time. Like we did today, whenever we did the pastry, it's like, let's just get things to display, and that's it. Let's not worry about the data structure, let's not worry about displaying the HTML, let's just get stuff on the page, let's just focus on that one part. And that to me is the hard one. Because it's what should I be focusing on? Is it too big? Is it too small? Am I trying to do too much? So forth and so forth. So that's the hard part. And a lot of it is just kind of practice.
Yeah, because I don't even mean, I guess, necessarily all of that, but like, let's say, okay, you want on your page, how you want your lists or your items or whatever content it is categorized. But in that process of writing it out and abstracting it, how do you kind of keep track of what and where everything is and what its purpose is, what it should be?
So that comes down to slowly, purposely coding and knowing what's going on. Because if you throw me into a website that's a million lines of code with a whole bunch of components and JSON files and APIs, it's going to be confusing. Just like if you're familiar with anything else in past life, the more you work with it, the more familiar you get. And that comes down to how are we organizing our code base? Is it scattered? Is it not? Are we coding with intent? Are we taking the time to figure out what exactly we're coding? And is that anywhere else? So it's a lot of patience and not. So even though it might take me, I might say, oh, this feature is going to take me an hour to build. I'm actually going to say it's going to take me 4 hours to build because those first 3 hours, I'm seeing this anywhere else. I'm seeing this if it's anyplace else. So patience and thorough reading, I guess, if that makes sense at all, if that helps,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, it's really just a lot of practice and patience. I know, not a great answer.
No, it's
When we started this refactor, we have a component that was like component bakery list item. We didn't use it anymore. We can delete that too, can't we?
No, we're using bakery list item. It's up here, bakery item.
Okay, fine.
This was like pie item list item or something like that. It was specific for a pie, but now it's no longer specific for a pie.
So do we still need bakery list jams?
Yep. In bakery list JS, that's what shows the whole list.
Right.
I know.
See, maybe I need them to be better, like not better titled, but I mean like titled for me.
Yeah, and like
the
that's
for dummies version.
and I think you hear me tell the story when I first started coding and make programs with like ridiculous variable names, right? Like giraffe plus lion equals hawk, like completely ridiculous. And that I think really helped me kind of learn that variable names are just placeholders for what's going on, and not to get too caught up in the minutia of what's actually on the screen, and kind of live more in the abstract, not in the less abstract. I don't recommend doing that, or you do. Try it out.
I was gonna say we're also
Proceed with caution.
Liv, we're also not putting comments in our code. And,
Yeah.
Like while you're deciphering this on your own, I would put as many comments as you need, so that when you go back to GitHub, it's like, oh, that's what that does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not commenting because we're just kind of focusing on producing code right now.
Yeah.
But really, if I would ship this, I'd start putting comments of like what's going on. So it might be a good exercise for you to try to do is write some comments and come see if you can write or not.
I need to do more comments.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't do
Yes.
comments.
When I was learning, I had a professor that would require us to write so many comments per app, per program, and it was the worst requirement ever because I was just making up fluff comments. Like here, it'd be like bakery item. It's an item for a bakery. Like good code is self-documenting to a point, but it's not. But sometimes code does need comments, and figuring out what it is, like you don't want to say this is an item for the bakery whenever it's called bakery item. Like we know that. Like tell me like why'd you do this? What's
See, like the
intent
map,
behind
it's
this?
like the map method. You could be like,
Yeah, like
what you're doing with it.
yeah, like I want to display a list of bakery items or a list of food items from a JSON file. So yeah, Dante, thanks for the picture.
When you were first learning, did you find it useful? Like I've been kind of like, so like we'll Google stuff and we'll see little snippets of code and stuff, and it's not always like understandable. So like a lot of the snippets that I use are like stuff that I've already done, that I know exactly what it does because I wrote it and I did it on some other project or something. And so I've been trying to like think maybe I should like organize it all into like a thing, like a file or something, or like.
A lot of some
You think
developers
that'd be-
will do that. They'll be like, I wrote this code. I'm going to keep it like, here's my library for managing the lists or something.
Like code comments that I've solved
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah, like here's like my tool belt. I don't because I'll recreate it because the stuff that I wanted to do when I was first starting out, if I go back and use that code, I'd be upset at myself. Because like we mentioned sometimes, like you even look back at code you wrote last week and you're like, well, this is shit. So yeah, so that's kind of like a double-edged sword. It's good to know the problem solve and how to solve it. Use it as a reference, not so much a blah, blah, blah.
I would say two tools that I use is that if I see something cool or code that I would like to reuse and remember, slap it to myself.
Yeah.
Also have coding notes, but then also I have bookmarks with
Mhm.
folders, specific folders. And that's been helping.
Man,
You said you wanted to do an easy thing and a hard thing. Which thing was this?
the hard thing.
Okay.
No, this was the easy thing. Though.
I'm sure either. I'm really glad you asked that question.
Yeah, no, this was the hard thing because now we're dealing with 2 levels of abstraction, and kind of like, well, we just wrote like a dozen pages with like 2 lines of code. So like that's hard to grasp. Like the dynamic, like this is one of the harder concepts of the cohort, is like we're making pages without actually making pages.
The potential for pages.
Yeah.
They're like ghosts.
Yeah, it's like, remember how we taught you how to make web pages? Forget all of that. This is how you make web pages.
Yeah.
Really nicely done.
Yeah. About that. So yeah, here we are.
So,
Yes.
but if you want to style each individual pages, since we didn't make those pages, then just pull them where we style.
Yeah. So this says that our bakery, every single pastry is going to look exactly the same. It's gonna.
No matter what.
Yep.
But if we want to change it, that can't happen.
If we want to change it, then we need to add some conditionals in there. Be like, if this is like a s'mores, we need to make it this way. So that adds another layer of complexity on top of it. Because not only do we need to supply it, hey, what does it look like? Hey, now what are our class names? And inside of our foods JSON, we want to say, you know what? We can go class name is cookie. And then we can apply that class name wherever we need it. And now we're dynamically styling this.
To that image.
Yes,
That's
to whatever this class is, yeah. And then on the flip side, just because it's fun to do this, we can do class name equals pastry dot class name. We can do something like that now. So now we are dynamically styling based on what the content is, but that content has to be aware of what the CSS is. So yes, it's possible, but now we're in a whole new realm of complexity. Which isn't anything to be afraid of. No, guys, this is nothing to be afraid of at all. This is actually quite calm. But one more thing for us to have to kind of reason about.
So the easy thing.
The easy thing? So it's 4:30. I don't want to take too much of your lab time away. Are we cool to do the easy thing, or do we want to wait till
We need
Friday to do
decompression.
the easy thing?
How easy?
We need decompression on
I mean, is it going to be helpful for the homework tonight?
Not really, maybe. Maybe?
It's going to be pretty cool to pull our socks off.
I say let's go.
Let's do it.
Alright, let's do it. I'm not wearing socks.
I have a pair. Hold on.
Why does it not surprise me? So what I want to do is, on my bakery list, like, this thing is going to be on every page.
Right.
Even though,
This is useful.
right?
That part.
So we could do something like this. We're going, you know what? Give me this dot props dot match dot params dot tummy treat. So that's one level. That's that's the next level awesomeness. So now if I come to cookies, cookie monster, check out these cookies. It's already a bit more dynamic, right? But what if I want each page to have their own catchphrase or tagline or something like that? Like on the cakes page, we say this is a lie. On the cookies page, we say look out for Cookie Monster. On the pie page, we like check out the windowsill or something like that.
So we add it as a property
Say it.
on the list object, and then we call it out in the params
Yeah, the list object in the
array.
that's in the JSON file.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We add it to the JSON file, and then we call it out here. We're going to need to restructure our JSON file just a wee bit. A wee bit. So instead of pies being an array, pies, each thing is now going to be an object that has treats as the array and a tagline of
What's wrong with making it a property? Tagline.
so like just because these things are arrays. Arrays don't have properties, they're just a list of values. So we could say, oh, the first thing is always your header, but now we have spaghetti code. So let's restructure this real fast. Tagline, these cakes aren't a lie.
It's trucky, treat, truck. What is? It's 5 o'clock, so it's
Okay, so we've turned this array of things with different values
Mhm.
into objects
Yep.
with properties.
Yep.
And taglines added to that as property that we
Yes.
call on.
Yes, so now over here in pastry, actually I'll start in bakery list. Now our header here is now just data.foods. This thing dot tagline. And here it's dot treats.
Oh, I would have forgotten that. I never realized why my stuff was very broken. And that's because you made it into an object.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. Because now that array that was at cakes is now at cakes.treats. And then I don't think we need to do anything here. On bakery item, no, we don't.
those brackets and
Foods.treats. That's getting long, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know. It's just long. I'm sorry. What a common thing to do is like, so here we have like this dot props tummy treats, well, 3 times, right?
Right.
So it's like, hey, yeah, this treat, just call it out once. And then reuse that.
Oh, I love that. I like that so much better.
So like that already looks so much better. So you'll see that a lot. I just did it a couple times just so we see where it's coming from. So that was the easy part. Let's see if this works. Cookie Monster approved. I need a home button. I'm making a home button real fast.
Mm.
Component,
That's helpful.
home button
Yeah,
JS.
yeah, exactly. Right.
Oh, it's a folder.
JS folder. Yeah, a JS folder. It's got like a little JS insignia on it.
Takes so long.
So our home button, just to kind of say it again, import link from React Router DOM. Link to /home, go home, and then I just use this wherever I want to use it. So
Every
on every page,
on every
right?
page.
Import bakery list. Nope. Home button.
Did you actually put a button tag?
No, it's a link tag.
Oh.
Components
because it's just
/
okay.
yeah.
So it wasn't in
It'll just be an a tag.
You could actually make it a button
Yeah.
with an index if you want to.
Yeah, good. I mean, I wouldn't, but because an a tag goes to a new page, a button is an action on the page.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know. People are. I know. I recently ran into that issue on one of my projects where I was using an a tag as a button because it looked cool. It's like, yeah, this looks
I
cool. I don't
know.
gotta deal with all the button shenanigans. But it didn't work. I was getting a whole bunch of propagation errors. I was like, yeah, fuck it, I'm doing a button. Each child. So now when I go to a food group, like pies, cookies, cakes, I'll go to cookies, Cookie Monster approved, my go home button, takes me back home.
And you, sorry, you link to go home to the
Just-
page.
Yeah, just the homepage. Just dot slash.
Oh,
Yeah.
So these links, it's only just around your website, right? So you still use like an A tag if you want to go to a different website?
Right. I would at least, because that's even though we're getting the same thing at the end of the day, this is more tied to React Router, and that's more tied to someplace else. So I would still say if it's going to a different domain, use an A tag around your site. Link.
Question.
Yeah.
Not sure which JS file it was, but Visual Code does that little syntax with curly brackets and parentheses. It always adds it on there. Do you know why? You actually have one of them.
Yeah, that thing.
It came out and it always comes up.
This one right here.
Yeah, why does that always happen?
So somewhere along the lines, I actually put a space there,
Okay.
either from copying and pasting or just say space a couple times. And it's like, you know what, this person wants a space right there. I'm gonna render out a space right here.
is that prettier?
Yeah, that's prettier, trying to help you out a little bit.
Okay.
Feel free to delete those unless you want a space there, and then keep.
So the dynamic pages are never actually created until somebody goes to the link.
So they're not actually created. They're not shown until someone goes to the link. It's like one of those like, does a tree fall in the woods? Does someone actually hear it?
Well, the reason I ask is if you're dealing with like a really large data set.
Yeah, it's so not created. It's like Twitter doesn't have all of our pages saved somewhere into a folder.
Okay.
They just have one profile page that is loaded data whenever someone hits it.
Okay. Okay. So it doesn't have to read through all of its
Right.
data every time.
Cool. That was the easy thing. Was the object, the tagline. So just changing our data structure and then changing everything that uses that data structure. That's all. Wasn't anything too crazy. See? Easy.
So is this part of the home assignment tonight? Sorry.
So this is adventure mode, is to abstract everything into a JSON file. Which really wasn't that crazy, was it?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think.
Like we put everything that was the same on each page into a JSON file. I know.
If you were to come up with it by yourself, it'd be crazy.
I love it, but I don't love
It was kind of nice that
You don't do it.
we were able to manipulate the JSON file there at the end, but it was only for really science.
Yeah. I mean, but that's what all this is. It's just science.
It's science.
it.
Are you gonna